like English.
Yes.
And the reason English is not gendered, who knows the reason English is not gendered? Because it used to be. The reason English is not gendered is because English is a combination of 4 languages. Anglo-Saxon, a German language, French, no, German, Anglo-Saxon's a German, French, Latin, and Danish. And Danish, in other words, yeah. And because those languages all treat gender differently, it became easier just to avoid genders entirely.
That's a good reason.
So actually makes it easier to learn English. Okay. Good. And now we go back to our, now we go to our
57B, is it?
Yep. And Michal is going to post it in 1 second. 5 things are 1 of 60, Reb Michal. So Michal, are you planning on visiting up north anytime in the summer? Because if you are, I'll organize the Siyum for your visit.
It doesn't hear you.
I'd love to. When
no, in other words, anytime we can do it anytime in Av, basically. It'll be Av or beginning of Elul, based on this rate we're going. We can leave the last line for later, even if we start the next tractate. So if you plan on being in the Northeast at all, I'll invite you in person to the Siyum.
Thank you.
You can even come with your wife and spend Shabbos with us. Okay. It's New England is a vacation place, so you can go see Basketball Hall of Fame and the Dr. Seuss Museum and Norman Rockwell Museum, and then you can spend Shabbos with us. Anyways, you want to put up you're driving? I'll put up the page, no problem.
I'm actually a passenger, but I'll look for it. But
no, I'll put up the page right now. Give me 1 instant. Safaria Brachot 57B. Usually it's me who's driving. Oh, apropos of that, I have to cancel the Parsha class for this week. I'm going to send out an email. We're just letting you know I have to cancel, unfortunately. Okay.
Are you going to be away?
What? No, I just have to cancel the Parsha class today.
Oh, just today?
Yeah, no, yeah. We were supposed to do it Tuesday instead of Monday. Every time I change the day, it never works out. So whatever. Moshe just came back from Israel. He has to go to the
I sent the link.
What? I'm putting the link up right now here.
Moshe, I think, is going to have a voice.
Okay.
Like yours.
Yeah, I put the link on the chat.
Oh, you have it already? Good. Okay, good. So I'll just go there and excellent. Beautiful. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, you filling in as the secretary for the group. Okay, it'll be up there in a moment.
Bevakasha.
Taking a little bit of while to load, but meanwhile, while it loads, let's just share screen.
So,
And no, we're before that. Okay, so I'll start what we're doing, and there we are. Okay, and let me find the right place on the page, and that is here. Chamisha Vashisha Vasara. The sign is 6, 5, 6, and 10. So Chamisha Echad Meshishim. Chamisha Echad Meshishim. There are 5 things that are 1 in 60. In other words, anything when it comes to kosher, anything more than 1 in 60 is considered utterly nullified. So 1 in 60 is a smidgen, is a Talmudic term for a smidgen of a flavor of something, where something just barely has the flavor of something else. So there are 5 things in this world which are 1/60th of their most extreme possible manifestation. And those are Aish, fire, Devash, honey, Shabbat, Shabbos, Shena, sleeping, V'chalom, and a dream. Aish, fire, Echad Meshishim L'Gehinnom. Fire is 1/60th of purgatory. In other words, the worst pain you can have from being burnt in this world is 1/60th of the pain the soul feels for the retribution for its sins in the next world. And to understand, it's not that Hashem punishes us, it is merely that we experience the true depth of the evil we've done in our life, and that is 60 times more painful than the greatest possible pain a human body can endure. Because a soul without a body can endure much more because it's not limited. Devash, the taste of honey, echad meshishim lemon. We human beings find sweet things tasty. So the pleasure in honey is 1/60th of the pleasure of the wonderful taste of the man that fell to the Jews and in the
That's
desert.
the case that this kind of sweetness I call chalushes. Because
No, it's not about the sweetness, about the pleasure. Obviously, 60 times more sweet, you wouldn't find it pleasurable.
exactly
We're talking here about pleasure, not
pleasure.
the pleasure and sweetness in honey is 1/60th of the, and the idea by the 1/60th also is the idea of the physical compared to the spiritual. In Gehenom, it's physical, spiritual pain. The pleasure of the man was spiritual pleasure. It says the Torah was only given to those who ate the man. Shabbos,
Yeah, but
Shabbat, echad meshishim liolam haba. The pleasure of a nice Shabbat, a properly observed Shabbat, the spiritual pleasure and the physical pleasure of Shabbat is 1/60th of the world to come, which in this case means Gan Eden, the spiritual reward. So the greatest experience of Shabbat is 1/60th. It's a taste of the great reward that our souls experience for the good things they did in the world to come.
Where does the 1/60th come from?
Well, we explained it right before you walked in,
Sorry.
but very briefly, 1/60th, when with kosher food, if something non-kosher falls into a pot, we assume that if the non-kosher food is 1/60th or less of the kosher, that it's nullified. So if a drop of non-kosher chicken soup falls into your kosher chicken soup, if there's 60 ounces of kosher soup and 1/2 ounce of non-kosher soup, the taste of the non-kosher is nullified and you're allowed to eat the soup. So the idea is that 1/60th is the smallest amount that you can feel in another thing. So it's a taste. So honey is a taste of the man. Fire being burnt is the taste, a small taste of Gehenna, of where one goes to be purged of one's sins. And Shabbat is a taste, it's 1/60th of the enormous pleasure of the world to come, of Gan Eden, where we go to enjoy Shena, Echad Meshishim Lemisa. Sleep is 1/60th of death. In other words, when you're asleep, you're unconscious, your soul leaves your body somewhat. So sleep is a taste of death. In other words, sleep is a tiny bit on the journey towards death. Because when a person's asleep, their soul leaves their body somewhat. Chalom, a dream, is 1/60th of prophecy, which means that when you dream, there's a possible tiny taste of prophecy, as we've been saying all along. Now, let us see if Rashi has something interesting. He's always something interesting. Let's see what Rashi has to say. Okay, now let me see what the Marshui has to say.
Tosfos?
Marsha, Rabbi Shmuel Edelis of Krakow, very important commentary, and he wrote on the Agada, unlike many others. Edelis, yeah.
Krakow head.
Krakow,
Krakow.
Krakow, okay.
Krakow in German.
Krakow was in Poland.
Yeah, but it's from
Yeah, so the Marsha
Krakow.
says like I say, it has a little bit of a taste of the thing. Okay, now we are going to, so that's 5 things. Now we're going to learn about 6 things that are a good sign for a person who's sick. This is the rabbi's observation. Shisha devar simin yofa lechola. There are 6 things that are good signs to someone who is ill. Eluhain, these are they. Because basically the premise is that they demonstrate a degree of vitality, that the person has come back from death's door. Eluhain, these are then itush, sneezing, because you need some strength to seize, and your body's just zeya, sweating. We know that people who are at very high fever, when they break out in the sweat, the fever often breaks. I remember that when I had a bad cold or the flu, my father used to do for me once I was like 9, 10 years old, and what his mother used to do for him, and what her mother before did. That when I had like a cold or a
Bankis.
no, not bankis, not
Muggle,
cupping.
muggle.
No, that's for the sore throat.
No,
But-
not for everything.
Yeah, well, what they did is he made a very strong tea and poured a little bit of scotch into it and gave it to me to drink. And then he wrapped me in lots of blankets, and I would schwitz all night, and in the morning I would be fine. So sweat is a good sign.
But why then
That's what a
keep,
muggle muggle does for you.
Yeah, it
But-
could be. But
why keep
you know,
But the original formula.
2 years ago, the high holidays, I had a very croaky voice. I tried the Goggle Muggle. I told you it really worked.
This is where it got started. The old Chazunim used to drink it down to make their voice mellow.
what do you
Right.
mean?
So what is it?
Raw-
It's
raw egg?
hot. It's what is it? It's an egg, honey.
A raw egg.
And first it's milk, and you cut the milk with a little bit of water, so, and honey.
And a raw egg.
honey, sugar
And a raw egg.
and an egg yolk.
Yeah,
And you heat it as hot as you can, a lot of honey.
right. Yeah, so you whip it up and you heat it. Yeah, I use the microwave. It works.
Honey's probably the stuff that. makes
Yeah.
it-
Yeah, though the egg also apparently has an effect. Anyways, so shilshul, diarrhea, which normally, like in dysentery, it's not a good sign. But very often when a person has like a tummy bug, right? Once you get rid of everything, you feel better. So sometimes where the person has an intestinal ailment and the body gets rid of all the poison, of all the bad stuff, it's a good thing. Kerry, a seminal emission, because it shows the person has enough, is recovering a degree of strength. Vishena, and sleeping, because very often, a sick person can't sleep. Very often when they do get better, they go into a deep sleep and you wake up, you feel better.
Mhm.
I remember the one time I had a really bad flu. So the night that I slept well was the night I got up. I was like on my back. I never felt so sick in my life. Since then I get a flu shot. But when a person goes to sleep, that's a good sign sometimes, not always, the chalom and a dream. So when a person is sufficiently relaxed to dream, it's a sign that they're going in the right direction. Itush, sneeze, the chsiv, as it says, it's Yishosef Tohel Or, his sneezes flash forth light. Even though it's talking about God, it shows there's a good sign. Zeya, sweat, the chsiv, b'zeya sapecha tochel lechem. By the sweat of your face shall you eat bread. So a sick person doesn't want to eat. So when you schwitz, you get your appetite back. I'll tell you a funny story about that. Someone came, I think, to Meir Pramishlan and complained that he worked very hard for his living. So he says, it's good. It says, by the sweat of your brow, you shall eat bread. But he says, if I had enough bread, I'd be happy. But with all my work, I don't make very much money. So he says, don't worry. Well, the doctors say that after extreme exertion, it's not good to eat too much. Shilshul, diarrhea. As it says, he that is bent down shall speedily be loosed, and he will not go dying into the pit. And the seminal emission, as it says, he who sees seed shall prolong his days. Sheina, sleeping, as it's written also in the book of Eov, Yoshanti oz yanuachli. I shall sleep and then I shall rest. So that, Eov, Abeg, was racked by all kinds of pain. And he said, when I'll sleep, I'll know that I'm feeling better. the chsiv and a dream, as it's written in Yishayahu, Tachlimeni shall strengthen me and I will live. But chalom means not just strength, but also dream. And the idea that dreaming is good for you is there's a long, interestingly enough, there's a long Hasidic discourse from the Lubavitcher Rebbe from 1962, where he discusses the neuropsychological effects of sleeping and its relationship to the spiritual of dreaming, the spiritual effects of dreaming. Now, I'll tell you an interesting thing about the statement, Yashanti oz yenuachli. When I shall sleep, then I shall rest. So the Rambam says that a person should sleep 8 hours in a night, which is a third of the 24-hour day. So the Tosfos Yontiv had a son, Rav Shmuel, an ancestor of mine, who asked the question, how can it be that a person should sleep 8 hours a night, a third of their life, and never accomplish anything in the study of Torah? So he says that what the Rambam means, which is probably not what the Rambam literally meant, says Yashanti oz yenuach li. Oz is the gematria, numerical value 8. Li is numerical value of 40.
Oz when the Aleph?
Aleph Zion. Aleph Zion. Oz, then. Demos. Oz means then. Oz Yashanti, I slept. Oz yenuach li, then I will be rested.
I thought
So-
it was with an iron.
No, it's with an Aleph. So Yashanti, like Oz Yosher, no?
Oh, Oz Yashim.
Then. So Yashanti, I sleep, then I will rest. So the Reb Shmuel said, Yashanti Oz, if I sleep Aleph Zion 8 hours, Yenuach Li, I'm rested for 30, for 40, because Lamed and Yud, the numerical value is 40. And when the Rambam says to sleep 8 hours, he means to sleep 8 hours every 48-hour period. So Yashanti Oz, if you sleep 8 hours, you're rested for 40. I've tried that, and I don't find 4 hours being enough.
Of course not. 40 hours?
No, in other words, the idea is to sleep. When the Rambam says to sleep 8 hours, he means every 48 hours.
So
Not
get 4
every
hours
24?
at night.
No, that's what he says. Yashanti Oz. If I sleep 8, Yenuach Li, I'm rested for 40. So you stay up all night, and then the next night you sleep 8 hours. And I've done that, but it doesn't. But I
It
tend to
didn't
get very
exactly
tired.
work, right?
It doesn't work that good. It depends. If you're running around doing
Depends
stuff,
on,
if I'm doing things, I can get by with 3-4 hours. But if I have to sit and study and write, then it's very hard.
So I sleep maybe 4 or 5.
Yes, so when you get older, that's one of the advantages of getting older. You need less sleep. Okay. Shisha devarim merapin esachola, macholyo. The Gerer Rebbe, where the Sfas Emes, the second Gerer Rebbe from Varsha, so he slept very little, 2-3 hours a night. So one of his Hasidim complained to him and said, it's not healthy, Rebbe, you need to sleep more. So he says, people say about me that I have a Schneller cup, that I have a quick head, that I pick up things quickly. So it's just the same way that to learn a page of Gemara that takes one person an hour, I can do in 10 minutes. It's the amount of sleeping a person does in 8 hours, I can do in 2. I sleep.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So Shisha Devarim Rapin Esachola Macholyo, or Fuasa or Fuas. So 6 matters, 6 things can cure a person of their sickness, and their cure is an effective cure. Now, let me be clear. Again, Talmudic remedies relate to that time and that place and the particular nature of the people, and we don't know exactly what these things are. Eluhe, nevertheless, there follows kruv, cabbage, tardan, beets, season, dried foley, some kind of herb,
What's tardan?
beets,
Beets?
yeah, burkas,
Beats me.
keva, the stomach of an animal, the heres, the placenta, the oseres akaved, and the diaphragm of an animal. Now, you should know that there's a lot of nutrition in the organ meats. The Eskimos give what we call meat to the dogs, and they eat the internal organs and the liver and the spleen and so on. They don't bother with the muscle meat.
Really?
Yeah, they primarily eat though because they're full of vitamins. Think about it. How do Eskimos survive? How do they get all their vitamins? They don't eat vegetables. They only eat berries in the summer.
And the interns have more.
Yeah, the
vitamins.
internal organs of animals have vitamins and everything else. The Yeshom, others say, af dog and katanim, small fish are good for you. And it's known that like sardines and herrings and so on are very good for you.
Yeah.
Think about it. How did the Yiddelach survive in Europe? They had green vegetables in the summer. Otherwise, they ate onions, herring, and bread, and potatoes.
Carp.
Yeah. That small fish make your body strong, make a person strong. And it's true that small fish are better for you than big fish because of the mercury and so on, but that's not what the Talmud is referring to. But at any rate, small fish are healthy. And again, whether these things are effective medicines today, we don't know, but certainly, by the way, sauerkraut was known to, a lot of our health problems come from an unbalanced biome, the bacteria that live in our body. There's more and more evidence of this. And sauerkraut, which is the way they mostly ate cabbage, was preserved in every fridge. So sauerkraut, which stays preserved on its own, happens to have a lot of medicinal bacteria. It's good for you. Now, there are 10 things that make a sick person go back to a sickness, and the sickness is even worse. These are they. That means someone who's a convalescent shouldn't eat these things. You eat the meat of a bull, of a heavy old meat of an ox. Fat meat, because as you know, fat is hard to break down. Roasted meat. Poultry. Uveitza tzeluya, and a roasted egg. Teglachas, shaving your head. Shachalayim.
What about shaving your head?
It's bad for you, the sick person. Shachalayim, eating cress. Vacholov and milk. Now I'm going to go way out on a limb here, but lettuce and milk often go bad. They often have bad bacteria in them. But who knows? I don't know. Vagvina and cheese mean hard cheese. Varmerchatz and going into a hot bath, the kind of baths they had then, like a Turkish bath. V'yesh omrim af egozim. And there are those who say also nuts. V'yesh omrim af kshuim, and some people say also cucumbers are all not good for a person who is recovering from their illness. And we'll learn more about cucumbers when we learn together on Wednesday. Thank you all for coming. Sorry